Hello everybody, welcome to the first block talk. This is going to be one in a number of talks that we'll be giving over the next few weeks and the coming years. Thank you all for coming, much appreciated. I'm going to let Claire introduce herself mostly. But yeah, she's a renowned international creative director. Very lucky to have her offer her time on the street. Worked in New York, Amsterdam for Design Bridge Partners, who are now one of the biggest branding agencies in the world. Just recently merged with Super Union, which is part of WPP, who, if you don't know, own pretty much all the large advertising and design agencies and plus a bunch of other creative places. Hopefully you've got some questions to ask at the end. Claire will be more than happy to answer anything, mostly.
As long as you don't heckle during the talk.
Yeah, if you've got any kind of question, please put your hand up, or if you have a piece of paper, the flyer that we gave out, just again, put your hand up and we'll read it out. All right, over to Claire, thank you.
Right, thanks very much. Nice to see you all. Very glad that you all turned out on a Friday. I want to make sure that you get stuff out of this that you can use. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about me. When I came to Carlisle, I did my art foundation here. I saw people speak on this stage that really impressed me, and like some really kind of, way out of my league notable people. And so I'm going to mention a few of those things as well. I'm going to show some of my work from 30 years ago and work kind of more recently. I'll start with a little snapshot of work from just the past 4 years so you can see kind of the variety of things, because I love branding, and for me brand is whether it ends up being on branded packaging, because you're still creating a world of experience, or whether it's corporate branding. It's all the same approach. It's about ideas, imagination, and being relevant to your audience. So I've kind of got a few words of wisdom, I hope, that will stick with you. I think we're going to be about 40 minutes until there's room for questions. If it starts to drag on a bit, if people start throwing popcorn at me, I'll go a bit faster. So, a little bit about me. Northern, chatty, inquisitive, thoughtful, perfectionist. All have been positives or sometimes negatives, depending on how you look at them, because I need to stop talking and get on with things. Sometimes I just spend way too long digging into things. Thoughtfulness can also lead to kind of worry, and perfectionism can mean that you just don't get stuff finished. But they've also seen me in good stead as well. As Billy was saying, I've lived in a lot of places. I left the UK when I was 24, moved to Singapore. Thought I'd be away for a year. I think my parents thought I'd be away for 6 months, and I've never lived back here. Now has been the longest I've been back inside the UK, and that's what your careers can do for you. You can take imagination and creativity anywhere. You're really in a privileged position. All these places I've loved, all these places I've done great work, but most importantly, all these places are places that I've met people who I've worked with, who've made my work better, and have been brought out of different disciplines as well. So a little bit of a snapshot of work from the past few years. So Walgreens is like Boots in the States. So everything from education, FMCG, done a lot of beer, done a lot of alcohol. Actually, I've pretty much covered all the vices in my work career. And then done a lot of fintech as well, working with MasterCard or and Beam Suntory, who was kind of one of our kind of bigger clients towards the end of my time in New York. So I've learned an awful lot about bourbon. I've won a few things, very much helped by other people, as well as under my own steam. And I've learned a few things along the way, and that's really what I want to talk about. Believe in magic. Be curious. Measure twice, cut once. Maximum meaning, minimum means. Tell great stories, and be brave. So, believe in magic. My magic started because of my mum and dad. Norman and Denise. Mum's a nurse, Dad was in the Royal Marines. That's him setting off for Singapore when he was 21. So there was a bit of a kind of a weird thing going on there. I'm really lucky, massive support to me. I was not academic, I struggled in school, dyslexic, could never find my groove, spent all the time in the art department, just keeping my head down. It was when I came to Carlisle was the moment I thought, I found my people. This is it. So, mum and dad, also responsible a bit for my personality. Care a lot about the people I work with, but I need to have a plan. And what are we doing? When we were kids, 3 of us, I'm the middle one, we lived in the north of England. And I think this picture kind of exemplifies how the experiences you have change your mindset and why believing in possibilities is great, because we moved from here, static, black and white, to America. We moved to North Carolina. Everything in my life suddenly turned to colour. It was amazing. I just even loved the way we're positioned in this picture with our little hold-the-neck tops on that Mum had made for us. You know, everything about our lives just became like full. I thought we were on holiday for 2 years. I didn't even realise school was school. And the reason for that was that suddenly all of our influences, it literally felt like we were in a black and white world, we went to this colour world, we were watching Soul Train on TV, and a country and western show called Hee Haw, where the donkey would pop up again. Those are the kind of the graphics at the beginning. I think this was the start of what will make you all great at what you do, being eclectic in the things that you love, making sure that you fill your mind with things, and make it like an attic. Because the more you know about stuff, the more likely you are to come up with great ideas and be influenced in different ways and come up with those thoughts that nobody else is going to have. It's kind of getting past the ordinary. So whether it was me, my Big Bird busy book with like 101 things to do on a rainy day, of which I did everything that was in there, to convincing my mum that I had to have sea monkeys because of these little creatures that have a whole family and live in the water, and you know, everything that's, you know, and this will go on and influence you later. You kind of, if you look back yourself at the things that influenced you as a kid, you can see how you kind of end up on the trajectory where you are. And then, of course, we went to Disney World. Going to Disney World in the 70s in the UK. So we moved back to the North of England, trying to describe to people going on the Peter Pan ride or Pirates in the Caribbean, and you know, all of that is just about like supercharging your imagination with what is possible. So believing is really important. You've got to be open-minded, embrace new possibilities. Your imagination, creativity has no bounds, really. And the belief in the things that you do, and that how amazing that is for other people. And you'll experience this when you start working. Often our clients say to us, their best moment in the week is when you go to present creative work to them. It is kind of magic to them, because they don't know how have you solved this? You know, we needed this thing doing, and then you've created this possibility. What an amazing career to be having, whether it's illustration, photography, or design. All of it is about taking something out of your head and capturing it, and just for somebody else to be like, oh, that's moved me, it made me feel a certain way. Faith, you've got to trust in your own abilities as well. And connecting, the importance. I think it's fabulous to go down the studio here. The illustration is close to the graphics course. So you can go in and see the people in photography, because you'll get the best out of yourself by being around other people. So why there's a desire to be remote? Why would you want to be remote? Remote is cold and alone and in the dark somewhere. You know, you become inspired by people and things that are around you. So connection is so important. And also just kind of being grateful for those experiences as well, because it's all no matter what you get asked to do in your life, if you tackle everything with the same kind of belief that I'm going to do this the best way that I can, then you're going to learn stuff from it. People are going to appreciate what you have done, and it will lead to bigger things. So be curious. When I was a kid, the first magazines I really got hold of were everything that was in the Sunday Times, the Sunday supplement. Just would blow my mind when it arrived every Sunday. I would just tear things. I used to drive my dad to distraction if I started doing it before he'd seen it as well. I'd pull out all of these editorial pieces, and they were renowned at the time as well for the photographers that they represented. I only found this out later. It was only when I was working. I was like, oh my God, that picture that I tried to make a painting of, was by Richard Avedon, or Duffy shot those ads. And it was the ads also, as well as the kind of the editorial storytelling pieces that used to impress me. I had reams of these things all pulled out. And then you looked at the cigarette advertising. I would look at this and go, how did they do that? That's all done in camera. Like, models have been made and built in order that can be photographed. Not obviously advocating smoking to anybody, but this is how heavily influenced I was as a kid. Again, all shot in camera. And then there was a famous ad campaign as well. Oh, Duffy, actually, so the photographer who shot those, shot Aladdin Sane. His portfolio of work was incredible. Silk Cut was another one that was just, it's all about ideas and imagination. They're not showing a packet of cigarettes, but the minute you see that, you know what it is that they're saying. This campaign ran for years, and they got cleverer and cleverer with the things that they were doing, so that they could even do a scene from Psycho with the purple shower field. I mean, genius, what a brilliant idea, Of course, they didn't do this straight away, they did it over time and built on it. So it's like a conversation between you and the audience, and the fact that you get it, you feel as smart as the person who actually did the work. Absolute Vodka as well did this brilliant campaign where they just kept on the iconic nature of the bottle. They'd show it in different countries, or famous cities. So it's really positioned itself as being the world vodka, the global vodka. So the minute you walk through an airport to go somewhere, then it's Absolute that you're going to buy, because Absolute belongs in Paris and Amsterdam. Again, all in camera. There's no Photoshop involved in any of this stuff. So this was before I came to Carlisle. These were all the things that I didn't even realise was about design and photography and ideas and creativity. I just knew that I loved them. But then one of my first jobs when I was working in Australia, I worked for Oyster Fashion magazine, started working in fashion editorial. Met somebody in Amsterdam. She runs a photographic gallery, and rebranded her identity for her. Then we got to work on a piece of packaging for Walford. Could then bring all of those things together and make sure that we weren't just going to do any photography. We were going to find a proper fashion photographer who was going to shoot the pictures for us, as well as an illustrator. So working with Julia Keltz so that we really captured what we wanted to, because this is speaking to the world of fashion, as opposed to an attainable fashion as well, as opposed to the kind of legs forever shots that you used to get on their design. So I'm going to skip through, in this kind of front part, I'm going to show more pictures, and I've got 3 cases. Once I've been through all this, I can talk about it a little bit more in depth, because I know it's always a little bit kind of intimidating when you just see amazing, shiny things. You go, but how did you arrive at that? If you only show me the end, then I'm not going to get a chance to see the journey. So the world of Walford. So be curious. Know your audience. Understand who you're talking to. Collaborate and seek feedback. That Walford project, we were working with the architecture team as well as the client. We went to the factory. I saw how tights were made. It blows my mind. I had no idea. They're actually all knitted. I didn't know that's how they're made till we got there. But it's exactly the same with any project that you're doing. When you get a brief, really interrogate it and understand Who's it for? Why are they asking me this? Because the answer sits within there. Make sure being curious is also about being playful. When you play and explore, you'll find the best things. And that's with each other as well. Like kind of use the other people, whether they're working on the project or not, talk about it, because that's when they might mention a book or a photographer this or an exhibition that they went to, something that might then trigger more ideas for you. Measure twice, cut once. This is quite literally measure twice, cut once. You learn that quickly the minute you drill a hole in a wall or cut something out, that you should have double checked that. But when I started my degree in Preston, the first few months of that were about absolutely physically drawing typography. You had to pick a typeface, you had to draw it all out in uppercase and lowercase, you had to do it expanded, all on CS10, always rotary pens. And at the time, we were like, why are they making us do this? But we could also go downstairs and do hand typesetting. It made you have an appreciation for all of those details, why fonts are built a certain way. And kind of, I'm not advocating that you have to go out and do this. What I'm saying is, if you learn a bit more about why you love a certain font or how things work together, then you're bound to be able to use it in a better way and understand that if you just stretch it, that's disrespecting everybody. But if you find an expanded version of the font, it's going to look so much better. So this is the, I found actually my old portfolio with all this stuff in. It still blows my mind. My hand wouldn't be as steady now. But when then you start looking at typography in word marks, then you can make smart choices. You can look at it and kind of go, what isn't working in this for me? Could there be something inside here that's a bigger idea? And KY always had the diamond shape, but they didn't emphasize it. And we're talking about kind of female health. So actually, can you kind of really emphasize a part of the female anatomy by doing that? So that KY now means so much more just by looking at the word mark. And that could have been dismissed, but because also we were very thoughtful about how we presented it to the client, why we wanted to make those changes, it meant that it kind of felt like a no-brainer. And there's also one of those things from a branding perspective where actually a lot of people don't even know that you've changed it, they just realise it feels better. Let me just play that.
Let me introduce me. Ain't no time for imitation, ain't no time for playing. I'm just gonna do me. I'ma be feeling good. What you want? Feeling good. What you got? Feeling good. Here I go. I feel marvelous, glorious. I'ma be who I be. I'ma do what I do. Tell me what's that thing? It's a real thing.
So, take your time before you dive into any project, really understand the brief. The answer is often on the paper that you've been given. Take initiative, show ownership of tasks, demonstrate your eagerness to work on something. I've got a great case study later to share with you that, eagerness to work on the simplest thing or the thing that you might think might be the most mundane thing can often result in the best outcomes. And actually just shows your desire to kind of learn and to grow. Pay attention to detail, even the smallest tasks. I remember a nightmare a friend of mine had when they were when they started working as a junior. They were asked to cut some things out, and they just went to the cutting mat that had stuff all over it, and they just kind of cut out the thing on top of a load of negatives that had just arrived from photography. So pay attention. Yes, that's an honest mistake, but if you'd kind of been a bit more careful about the thing that you're doing. Plan, being thorough and deliberate about when you start, the time that you got. Something I've always been a little bit bad at and kind of easier to tell people to do than do yourself. But also just keep learning. That kind of, this idea of, I know that now. There's always another time to go back and look and see again. So maximum meaning, minimum means, I think is kind of the mantra that I've always lived by the most. Because I heard it here in Carlisle. I was sat over there, and this old gentleman walked onto the stage in a tweed suit, and he started talking to us. And he was called Abraham Games, And we're so privileged to have somebody like this come and speak to us at the time. He said, a commercial artist. So basically, design for commerce, or art for commerce. And you need to go and look at the work that he did, because it's just, sublime, because of its directness and simplicity and getting things down to just what needs to be there. And he talked about maximum meaning and minimum means, being that in the work that he did, he wanted to wind the spring so that in people's minds, so that when you looked at the poster, the spring would then unwind in your mind and you would get what it was. Again, it's that kind of like really understanding the audience, what's around them, and what might trigger that spring to be released. So just to explain that a bit more closely, one of my favourite things that he did was, this is an old halfpenny from 1936. This would have been in everybody's pocket back in the day. Britannia. In fact, Britannia was on all the coins, I think, until the late 90s. Everybody would know Britannia. She's a symbol of the United Kingdom. She's there with her trident, because we're an island surrounded by sea. She's got the shield with the Union flag on, representative of the nation. She looks proud and she's a protector. So it says so much about what it is to be part of the United Kingdom, to be British. Britannia is like the ancient old name for Great Britain. So this is kind of like in everybody's psyche. They kind of get this. They're not talking about it down the pub, but when they're spending the money, they recognise the symbol and they know what it's all about. Well, Abraham Gaines was commissioned to do something about litter. We want to have a poster campaign to stop people throwing stuff on the streets. And he came up with this. And you kind of, oh my God, that's genius. It's in celebration of the people who clean around us if we drop stuff on the floor, because it's now a wheelbarrow with a bin lid, with his broom, and he's proud and he's confident. And actually, if you saw this, you'd be like, yeah, I should keep Britain tidy. I should throw that in the bin, because he's recognised who the audience is and what will resonate with them. He's really understood. And this, you carry this forward as you go on in your work and your careers. You have to understand this, not just about your audience, but the context that you're designing in, or doing photography in, or the illustrations that you're creating. Because yes, we all have to be inclusive and have representation, but you've got to understand the cultural context as well. So if you're in a different country, what are the things? Because this wouldn't work anywhere else. This wouldn't work in Britain in the 30s and 40s because of the context. And go on and explore some of his other work that he's done. Just taking the A from war to fly it up to peace. Loads of campaigns for Guinness. And I reckon if they put this on the side of a packet of cigarettes, it would work today. So, hugely influential to me. I was like, how am I gonna, this is what I need to do. I need to get my work that simple. But simplicity isn't also just about starkness. Abraham Gaines lived in a much different visual world to the one that we live in. Yes, you can be simple, but it doesn't mean you have to be completely pared back. So fruit juices that we did, I think maybe 18 years ago, definitely play onto this idea of a drop also being the fresh fruit. There's nothing else in here but the juice itself. Even the fact that the clean label has the ingredients on the front rather than the back. So work for Colgate more recently that we got a few nods for in the awards. They were doing a recyclable tube and they wanted a recyclable logo. We're like, well, it's already there, isn't it? We're just going to show the tubes themselves recycling. And then, on all the limited edition packs for the initial launch, make sure you just respect all the colourways that are already being used so people can still find their product. But it doesn't have to be simple as in graphic and flat. It can also just be simple as in a message. I'm a great advocate for kind of, if you want to do something, talk about it in the studio and we'll find a way of doing it. Amsterdam has a fantastic light festival every year, and at the darkest, dingiest, least happening time of the year, where the city becomes full of art. It's an open brief, anybody can enter, and so we went, let's do it, let's spend some time, give it a go. The brief was, the medium is the message. And what do we stare at all the time that conveys messages to us, but actually maybe says that we're not as connected as we should be? So we created, and you had to be picked and selected for this. We won, we got in, and we're now actually part of the permanent collection as well. And Garley Lucas, who kind of was the main driver behind this, she was a junior designer at the time. In fact, the figures on the benches, one's Garley, like they're all, we could have based it all on the people in the studio. What's so nice is that people just ironically sit next to it and stare at their own film as well, and they're really related by it. So, striving for simplicity and clarity in your design conveys the intended message effectively. Continuously refine and improve. You've got to, there's lots of different ways. People talk about, like, you've got to kill your babies, you've got to kind of, whatever term you have, it's about kind of taking away the nonsense that doesn't need to be there, so you end up with the thing that's the truest to the brand. Ensuring every design serves a specific purpose, so everything that you're putting into it, and effectiveness as well, ensuring every action or resource contributes. I think particularly this day and age, when you're working on something, often, particularly within kind of, let's say, branded packaging area, you do have opportunities to say, why is this so heavy? Why are there so many touch points? How, are there things that we could be doing to make this a better choice for the world as well? Being resourceful, and also it's about innovation. It's about kind of bringing new things in meaningful ways. Tell great stories. So this is little me in school in the States. You already saw a picture of my mum and dad. My dad in the Marines. He was away a lot. Believe it or not, despite being chatty now, I didn't talk very much when I was little. But I loved a good story. I used to get in my head a lot, and I used to get my sister to tell me stories so I'd fall asleep at night. And this little bluebird was the bird that we would tell our stories to, that we'd talk to it, and then we'd fall asleep at night, and in the morning the bluebird would be gone, magic. And then a week or so later, we'd get this letter back from my dad saying, "Oh, bluebird told me," and he'd kind of relay bits of stories and stuff, all stuff that we just told to this little bluebird. I mean, obviously, my mum was just writing it all down, and she'd write a letter to my dad, and then we'd get something back. But kind of that power of that, kind of almost like mythology, but also understanding how important it is to be part of an ongoing story and a conversation, and all the work that we do is basically telling a story. It's making somebody feel something about the thing that you're doing. You might not recognise these, they're called aerograms. When I first moved away, there was no internet. You might get a phone call a week if you were lucky on a landline. But I used to hang out to get these little blue envelopes that your friends would write to you. And it was super thin, like onion paper. And they'd write on every little part of it, and it would all fold origami-like up onto itself. And yeah, I might have to have an exhibition of them all one day. So some of the best storytelling I got to do, again, about 25 years ago, for the Singapore Navy, of all things. They were trying to recruit more engineers. How do you get student engineers to come into the Navy as opposed to kind of any other arm of industry? It was an open brief. Well, love a good story, know how kind of young minds work and things you like to do. Let's send them a little torpedo with the blueprints of how to make a water bomb inside. And that's a direct mail piece to people to say there's opportunities for you within the Singapore Navy to do engineering. And their recruitment started to go through the roof based on these. And also, kind of an example of the client that you might think would be the most conservative was actually the most open to doing very different things. down to top trumps for the Navy. We need a brochure for the annual sail-by, fly-by of the, which isn't very big for Singapore, Armed Forces isn't very big, but rather than a brochure, we were like, well, if you're sat there waiting to see what goes by, let's do top trumps of everything, so that you actually know what aircraft is, and you know what the aircraft carrier is, what that latest kind of plane is that's flying overhead. They all join together at the back to kind of, as a bigger jigsaw piece. And we even did, the last card was mirrored, so that when you're on the stands, you could send little semaphore signals out to the people at sea. A board game for Chinese New Year, the Year of the Rat. This was a kind of a self-promotion for the design agency in Dentsu Young and Rubicon. Year of the Rat is in Chinese, kind of really speaks to kind of being stuck on a treadmill. It's going to be a hard year. There's going to be a lot of work. It was everybody, it's going to be Year of the Rat. So what better way of representing the work life of it's a continual, non-stop. If you get on, you're going to have to get back on again. All written very tongue-in-cheek. Oh, and this is the other thing that I would say to you. Always have a go at the writing. It doesn't matter if you're not a writer. It doesn't matter if you kind of like, you know, again, I'm dyslexic, worst speller in the world. If you start writing something, it helps people kind of get your idea. And then you find somebody, because somebody sees what you're doing, and one of the copywriters would go, I'll have a go at that, I'll do that for you. Because they're excited and they understand what it is you're trying to achieve. So, create emotional connections. Engage your audience and make your stories memorable. Find your truth as well. Identify what sets your project apart and create a compelling narrative. So what sets it apart from the other people doing the same project when you're at college, but sets it apart from the other brands that kind of might be being sold on the shelf, or kind of, you know, the brand you might choose. Show, don't tell as well. Make mock-ups of things. Storytelling doesn't have to just be just the words. If you've got images and context, you know, top trumps immediately makes you go, oh, that's going to tell me more details. You're putting people's head into a context. Knowing your audience as well. Speaking to all of you would be very different if this was a group of finance students. I'd have to be explaining much more about the things that we're doing, but there's already a shorthand already, because you've got creative minds, you're inspired by creativity around you. Understanding your audience is so important. Even how people like to be presented to. I don't know what your lecturers are like here. You might have some who are kind of, you know, way more kind of excited and dive in with feedback straight away. You might have others who sit back and wait. Understand how you want to present your work to them to get the best for you, because ultimately when you're doing crits and reviews, it's not about them, it's about you. That's your time. You want to get the most out of them so you can go away and progress your work. So really kind of understand how they like to be presented to, and even ask them, how much time have you got? I've got these things to share, I've been struggling with this. Can you not contribute till I've got through everything? And then let's have a chat about it. Like, take charge a little bit. Practice active listening. This is a huge one. Sometimes we can all be so keen to contribute that we're not actually listening to the thing that's going on. We're already thinking about the thing that we want to say next. So being able to tell great stories is about really being able to hear the conversation that's being said. And be authentic. The way I tell a story will be different to the way you tell a story. Find your way of doing it, and just then get better at that within yourself. You know, everybody is different, and kind of having somebody who speaks quite quietly but confidently about something is just as powerful as somebody who's kind of like, hey, I've got all this stuff that I need to share. Find your truth and connect in that way. And then the final of those points was be brave. This isn't be brave because it's a bag of blood. This is be brave because I won my first big award. This is kind of like the Asian DLADs kind of for this. And it was their annual, because we had won at Saatchi the year before, we kind of got Agency of the Year. We were given the opportunity to then create that annual. And the theme was all about getting young blood into the creative, particularly in Asia, where people might choose to maybe sweeping generalisation, I know, but might choose to kind of go into other forms of education and kind of show them how there's so many opportunities within design and advertising and writing. So if it was about young blood, let's just make it be that. So the whole annual was like a bag of blood, and all of the copy was written around your kind of DNA and disposition to writing or kind of to photography, or, you know, it was such a fun project to do. And I made mock-ups of everything and kind of stuck things in order that people would get it. And also because it was kind of ultimately a creative client, because it was this awards body, they kind of went with it and chose to do it. But and it was at the time when they had just mapped the genome. There was lots of conversation about DNA. So yeah, about 25 years ago, I think. Yeah, but loved it, you know, fun. And if you don't go for it, and we only presented one idea, my creative director at the time was like, no, just do this one. Let's just do the mock-ups, get it all, and go with it. But then the other end of the spectrum, why she's showing is a mirrored wolf. We do a lot of work with Diageo, and in the Amsterdam studio, we were working on Johnny Walker. The first year we worked on it for their gifting, we were like, oh, we had to use the photographer they already had, the advertising agency had already shot all the things. We had to work with it to make all the packaging work. And it kind of, you know, at times it felt like a little bit like a chore, but we were like, no, we can still make stuff out of this. And we did, because it was an amazing photographer, and it was great work. It just felt like we hadn't made it. But the work went down really well, and all the markets picked it up, they wanted it. So the next year, they came back to us again to do it. So then we got to decide what it was going to be. We used this fantastic artist called the Makery, and we built everything out of paper, and there was a bit more dimension to it. You know, and it felt like we were kind of on a journey. So then the third year, we started to build up this rapport with the client. Things were kind of going really well. And we had this idea of that all whiskey is the same when it's initially made. It's only as it ages and all the influences that are put on it that changes it. And if we're doing all of this gifting, wouldn't it be great? And they kept talking to us about the power and dimension of Johnny Walker. Let's actually make the striding man out of mirrors. Let's make a sculpture, and we'll just light it and have different things that affect it in order that it gives a feeling of the red, black, the double black, all the way up through to platinum. But you can't really mock that up. You can do kind of marker visuals, you can kind of have a go at Photoshop, you know. And we found this young artist, Aaron Gregory, and he was great because he was kind of self-made, he was just kind of getting started. And his story, we also felt, was the story of Johnny Walker about personal striving. And we got so far down the track, and we were going to commission him, and the client actually called me and he said, so this wolf sculptor, can he do it? Is it possible? I'm like, yeah, absolutely, 100%, this is going to happen. You know, we're so confident about it. I remember putting the phone down thinking, oh my God, please, this is good. Because none of it is done in CAD. He built one thing, and we photographed it, and actually this all went on to win Design Effectiveness Awards and everything. But I've got a little film, I can get a drink of water, and you can see and hear what was done.
When I was 15 years old, I was sent to Glyn Larkham's art studio as work experience. We kept in touch over the years, and he's become a real friend and a real inspiration to me. And he actually offered a space for me at the studio to come and work. It's a really productive environment. There's tons of natural light, and you know, time doesn't really exist. It's just a place where you can create and build and craft.
It's a very messy process. It becomes cleaner and cleaner, and then you finish up with this very graphic aesthetic. That's an approach that I love. I love to be hands-on with the piece. When it comes to materials, I find mirror particularly fascinating as it has no colour. It basically absorbs the surroundings. It's a beautiful material to play with. It's nice to build a mirror piece in one environment and then take it outside and watch it completely transform. always looking for that simplified aesthetic that's very clean and very reduced. But then there's also the side of me that's the craftsman that's trying to bring in a level of detail, and so it's like a journey to find the right balance. A brand like Johnny Walker, they're all about progression and vision. That's something that parallels to myself as an artist. Red for me is the most energetic label, picking up on this spice crackling idea. So we've tried to throw in loads of light and movement into the piece. For the black, we've created something that's very smooth and luxurious. The double black, we introduced a gloss floor and some smoke into the picture, and together they kind of pick up on this higher level of intensity and flavour. The gold for me was very much about celebration, and so what we've tried to do is achieve lots of different layers of light and layers of golds and different intensities and tones to kind of reflect the textures and tones of flavour in gold label. Platinum was introducing a sophisticated approach where we wanted to layer up lighting effects. We wanted it very structured and linear. I'm always striving for progression in my work, and I think that's where the brand and I connect.
So I think that's another example of, I was talking about working with other people as well. Brilliant creative director I was working with, Sam Wilkes, who's still a friend now, in New York, sadly, too far away. Aaron Gregory, the artist, and Zach, who's the photographer as well. Kind of, if you surround yourselves with people who are just on top of their game, then everything is going to get better, And you're in a perfect situation now. You're surrounded by illustrators and photographers and designers, like all that kind of. You should start now appreciating everybody else's skill sets and kind of how together you can kind of come up with brilliant things. So bravery is about pushing boundaries. It's daring to challenge conventions and explore new ideas. It's also about embracing failure, I could do a whole presentation on the stuff that went really bad, because it all does on the journey of any project. The creative is, when you get briefed on something, it doesn't start here and end there and it's a straight line to success. It's kind of like a bendy bed spring. You kind of go, oh, that's going well, oh, now it's gone really bad again, oh, now it's starting to go, you kind of, as long as it kind of continues to go upwards, but it never goes in a straight line. And actually, sometimes that's good, for good reasons, because it could be that the client then rebriefs you, you get closer to a thought, or you learn something about it, and, next time, you don't do that again. You start to learn from that. You need to speak up as well, share unique ideas, perspectives, and do that confidently. If you just keep everything inside your own head, then you're never going to know whether it's a good idea or not. And if you're doing that within a safe environment as well, it's kind of, then just anything goes, doesn't it? Respecting each other's thoughts as you go. Follow your passion as well. Know the things that you really love, and kind of make sure the projects that you're doing kind of lean in that way, or challenge yourselves as well. If you actually are terrified of typography and don't like doing layout or print editorial stuff, then kind of examine it a bit more and decide why is it that you don't like it, and maybe just the perseverance and taking that little kind of braver step will mean that you get better at doing it. Trust your instincts as well. I'm a great believer in gut, whether you're presenting work to a client and how they feel, or whether it's a presentation that you put together, really think about, what your gut is telling you, and listen to it, because, often it's on the other side of things. I knew that I should have done that differently. Be bold, take risks, step outside the comfort zone. now is the perfect time to be doing this, to do all those things. And ultimately you will leave your mark as well, you know. And again, courage isn't about being loud and brash, it's about putting yourself out there. So even when you're having a review with your tutors, treat every review like a presentation. Go in there to get the most out of it, you know. Even say, I have a big trick that I'll say to people, oh, I'm a bit nervous about this, I've got so much to share, and almost just voicing the fact that I'm feeling nervous kind of makes me feel better before I start doing the presentation. We're all human. That's the other side of the telling stories thing, as well as when you all care more about me now because you know my mum was a nurse, you know, and you know I was cute once with pigtails. I didn't speak very much. You know, it is about human connection, and what you're doing is about creating things that inspire and inform and make people feel a different way about a brand or because of the things that you have created. So if you're all still willing, I'm going to just take you through a couple of cases in a little bit more detail. All good? Yeah. All right then. So with all of those things in mind, and remembering it's kind of like a graphic equalizer. It's not like, oh, today I'm going to be brave, and now I'm going to be really simple, and now I'm going to... It's kind of like finding the balance of all of those things together. Oh my God, what is that? Horrible shelf. It's actually even called shock, and it looks disgusting. You know, you can imagine getting this brief in, and everybody in the studio going, no, I'm busy, I've got other things on. A big brand in the States, but in a commodity aisle. This is for people who have swimming pools and hot tubs. Never had a swimming pool in my life, never had a hot tub, never shopped this aisle, would have no reason to go down there. It will be the same for you, you know? There will be stuff that you work on that you have no intention of ever buying or being involved with, and that's the whole point. You need to find out about it and why people would want it. Well, our client was HTH, and they were like, we used to lead the market, and now Clorox has come in, and they're taking everything. Well, Clorox in the States is like, what's a bleach brand in the UK? That's a big, like Dettol, imagine Dettol. Like, so you see Dettol in hand soap and all kinds of things, and you would shop for it just in your house every day, so you feel confident around it. So if you saw it in the pool aisle, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to get that because I know Dettol. HTH wasn't anywhere else, it was only in the pool aisle, and Clorox had come in, and everybody knows that Clorox is effective. So how are we going to redesign this? Well, first of all, remember, it's not just about packaging, it's a brand identity. It's a brand identity. It's going to have photography, it's going to have illustration possibly, because you've got to have, you know, how to use our product. It will end up on a pack, it's going to live in a whole brand world that if you just see part of it, you're going to understand that's from HTH. HTH, by the way, here to help, and they made it into an acronym, which is not very helpful because they weren't really around enough for people to understand. But actually the ethos of here to help, you know, there was a clue in there. The client wanted us to move from product to purpose. I'm not going to get deep into the strategy, but if you're just a product, it's like just grab some cereal, just grab some washing soda, just grab some detergent. It's just, you're not buying it because it's a brand, you're just buying it because you don't actually care so much about it. But they wanted to differentiate this category, because if you get this wrong in your swimming pool, that's a lot of money. You've got to empty out all the water, you've got to fill your pool again. And they really wanted to create a compelling language and a tone of voice. So, you know, you want to hear all of these things from a client, you know, and we didn't expect it from a client in this category. They wanted to revolutionise, they wanted to do what Casper had done for mattresses or what Method had done for cleaning products in their home. You know, they wanted to be taken outside of their comfort zone. They were being exceptionally brave. So, you know, it was on us to do it. They talked about being consumer driven, the Harry's razors or the Sunday lawn care product that's in the US. So we have to remember, Clorox is the one that's entered, everybody knows it, and everybody knows it kills 99% of germs, you know. We were never going to out-Clorox Clorox. What's in our bottle isn't like what's in the Clorox bottle. We have a different thing. So understanding, it felt like we actually went through chemistry degrees, and the amazing strategist we worked on this, I think she almost did do a mini chemistry degree to understand how all of this worked. But Clorox is there shouting, we're doing everything, being splashy, wavy, the typography is saying, shock, that everything about it is trying to tell me something, but the last thing I'm hearing is that that's something I feel confident using to put in a pool that my kids are going to jump into. But efficacy was not the problem. People were, in this aisle, they kind of think everything is going to work. Consumers believe in the power of what's in these packs. The problem isn't that. It's really is about kind of doing things the right way and doing it effectively. They think they will get it wrong, not what's in the pack. So it wasn't about efficacy, it was about empowerment. So Clorox were just like, oh my God, that is really strong. If it kills 99% of stuff and I put that in the pool, you know, I could get it wrong. So HTH had an opportunity, if they were about being here to help, of making people feel better about how to use this, about empowering them. So now I'm going to ask you a question. If you are the empowering partner, if you're motivational and you're inspiring and you're committed and this is who this brand is and they're the ultimate team player, they're at your side whenever you need them, what are the associations that you have with being confident around water? Are the things that kind of make you kind of go, yeah, no, that feels, that would make me feel comfortable if I was going to go near the water? What are the things that kind of we could use with our identity and our packaging to really build things that were distinctive, made it feel like we belonged around water and swimming pools, but most of all gave me the confidence to feel safe in the things I was using around water? Well, it's life preservers and the Coast Guard, and there's a language of safety and support around water, whether it's the lifeguard at the pool, or whether it's the Coast Guard, or there's a design vernacular that exists. There's colours, there's typography that make you kind of go, yeah, you know, if you saw that, you'd feel like, yeah, that feels safe and trusted. And at the moment, they don't know like any of these things. But in showing this to the clients, then they're going to, yeah, I get it. We need to feel more like that. We don't need to behave like Clorox. So let's make HTH look like safety around water. Make it feel that if that's on the side, I'm confident to go in there. I've made all of the right choices. Our identity just looks like a life preserver. And actually, in lots of ways, we're not a million miles from where we were. We're still kind of an oval. We've still got a wave. We've still got our bold type and some of our colourways. But now we're full of meaning that means safe. You know, and suddenly a project that people were like, oh, how's that going to go? We're creating really strong design choices, and we are able to change the category. And the way that we deliver all the information on pack also needs to be straightforward and direct and simple. So you go from that to this. Their sales went through the roof, and they got picked up in bigger distribution because now they look like they're about support and safety around water. And if you're walking down that aisle, you're going to be able to find what you need because there's not all this graphic noise going on, but also you're going to start to feel something about the brand. You understand what the brand is trying to convey to you. So at shelf, and actually in context by the side of a pool. So probably never likely to have a swimming pool in my life. I now know an awful lot of things about a swimming pool, but do you see what I'm kind of getting at? It's simple. It's got a story within it. You know, we had a client who was brave, so therefore it gave us license to do that. We took away all the stuff that really didn't need to be there, and then fought for it along the way as well. Whenever there was a little bit of a waiver, to be able to just keep showing them the shelf of where they were and where they were going to go to. And then to start to build that out, because you could use that to brief a photographer to then understand how are we going to do our imagery around that. So to show you the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm saying it's not all about simplicity, that was very pared back and graphic. The same kind of thing can be applied to the world of bourbons and luxury. So this is the finished piece for Basil Hayden. All bourbon is whiskey, but all whiskey is bourbon. You learn very quickly when you're working with people from Kentucky. They had a brand, Basil Hayden, that they wanted to make luxury and become a big export. When they showed it to us, it's small batch, been around for a long time, it's a good bourbon, people liked it, but it didn't have the kind of, didn't really know what it wanted to say about itself. And don't know how much you know about the world of bourbon, you might know a few bourbon brands, but the category is really kind of dominated by this idea of strength and endurance. It's kind of like firewater, kind of somebody walk into a bar with spittoons, you know, and sawdust on the floor. You know, it's really about kind of like, you've got to be in it, you know, and all bourbon actually isn't about that. Yet the world that Basil Hayden sat within was kind of just, didn't know what it was doing. It was kind of, we're kind of dark, because bourbon's dark, so let's go with that. So they weren't being consistent and cohesive with their brand, because they didn't really know what it was that they wanted to say. So understanding that bourbons are all about, you know, it's too hot to handle and can you take it, or bourbons that are all about like, oh, we're just nice, we're kind of a gateway bourbon, try us, we're not as bad as those ones. There's a space in between to really understand that this gap is, you know, this idea of a measured bourbon that has all the layers, and it was created to really compete against high-end whiskies as well. This gap was perfect for us. I can't think of any other industry where the greatest competitors are your closest friends. We're all in the same team. We do anything in the world for each other. No questions asked is what one of the chief distillers said to us. So there is a bourbon brand who wants people to enjoy the world of bourbon. It was about ownership and sharing. And Freddie No, who's the chief distiller, we did all of this first project during COVID as well, so we were doing bourbon tastings from behind our computers. We sent out little bottles to everybody. Freddie talked to us in his Kentucky drawl and said, I've always told people to drink bourbon any damn way they please. So this kind of idea that kind of an egalitarian bourbon, we just wanted people to step into bourbon and understand how amazing it was, led us to this thought of, actually, what Basil Hayden is doing, it's illuminating the best of the barrel. Because it has a light label, this was the bottle when we got the project, has a light label, this kind of paper that kind of felt like it's pulled out of the book, and it kind of was just looped over. It has this band that goes around it. I think, well, actually, it's like a Coopered barrel. It had like wood and metal on it. Had a picture of a barrel. It had a picture of a barrel around the back. It actually said Basil Hayden in about 4 different type fonts. It was just kind of a bit confused. Definitely said small batch, but was it illuminating the best of the barrel? Was it telling everybody this is a really great bourbon that has all kind of subtlety and nuance, and you can enjoy it however you want to enjoy it? Even the fact that the bottle wasn't a traditional bourbon bottle, it's more like a wine bottle, and the clarity of that and how you see the liquid itself. So it became this. We took the idea of the band and the monogram, but that's our visual language. If we start putting that across everything, and of the way we should do our photography, it's always about the light coming through the bourbon, then you start to see that story is kind of travelling from pack onto our imagery. Everything is way lighter as well. That kind of, one of those first slides with everything dark and heavy, just kind of takes you in a completely different way. So we are about radiating warmth, we're about generously crafted, we're about this quiet confidence. So now every touch point on the bottle has been designed to be that kind of reiteration of what is in that barrel. So down to the crown cork is kind of made of wood, it's embossed like the end of a barrel, so that the thing that you interact with every day just reminds you of where this has come from. And all of those details, you know, it now reads like the first page of a book that you picked up from the distillery. The band, we kind of took away this weird balsa wood that was on there, and when it was real wood on the top, it was great because that's the crown cork, but we had the metal band that now felt like the barrel being held together. And all of the little nuances and details, if you put this next to the old bottle, again, you've not kind of half squint your eyes, you know, you're kind of in a similar place. You're still going to find your brand at shelf or behind the bar, but suddenly everything just makes more sense because the way we show the barrel is end on, because now it looks like the top of the cap, and all of those details, you know, that measure twice, cut once, is kind of brought to life across all of this. So when you start to put all of that world together, it makes sense that we're light. It makes sense that the photography is done in that way. You know, the way that the kind of the graphic language of the band runs across, whether it's your outer cartons, an experience, and all of those ingredients together, when you clearly understand who Basil Hazen is as a brand. Which also meant that we could then go on and create other things, a whole piece on tone of voice that I'm not going to get into now, but to move from there to there, and now you're distinct, and now you're meaningful, and the bartender, if he's going to make you a drink, a Boulevardier is particularly nice, made with Basil Hazen, or a mint julep, then he's got something to tell you about it as well. He wants to talk to you about the story behind this bourbon. And you can do all of your range extensions, you can do limited editions, and you understand what changes and what flexes, because you know what all of those assets mean. I should have bought a bottle, actually. But that's probably not allowed to do that. And then finally, I'm not going to talk about this one so much, but a client of ours, because we used to go there a lot, because if you're ever in New York, there's a fantastic speakeasy hidden as you go through Criff Dogs. There's a phone booth. If you go into the phone booth and you dial 0, phone rings, and if they want to let you in, the back of the phone booth opens up and you go through to this brilliant cocktail bar called PDT, Please Don't Tell. During COVID, everybody was struggling. We actually had some cocktails made to send to a client, Colgate. Actually, we got some mint cocktails made from PDT, and they came to us to send out, and we were like, oh, these don't look so great, because they just put them in found bottles, and so we were like, well, that's a great project that we could do for free cocktails, or they could host our Christmas party, and we did get supplied with a lot of hot dogs. But so we did the PDT identity, but we also did Criff Dogs, because Criff, he was opening, he had a few wagons, he had a few other spaces and cities he wanted to open up into. And I'll show you the little film. It really is about understanding the whole vernacular of that part of New York. It's in the Village in New York. It's in St. Mark's Place. I mean, this is where every writer and every artist went and stayed and performed back in the day. The kind of the language of the typography everywhere that you see, and the little, remember you go through the phone booth, well, all the little cards for all the businesses, the laundrette, and all, you know, they all have a certain typographic language about them. So we just lent into that. You know, that it should really feel like it comes from this place, and the typography should be drawn from that space as well. And if we're going to use any colours, well, we're just going to use mustard and ketchup. So I've got a nice little film to share. So Criff Dogs was kind of a bit fanar previously. When we moved to something, quite frankly, the best. Actually, none of us can take claim for that. That is the line that the owner came up with. We had a photography and illustration style. We had a unique font that was cut for it. You see it there in the context of all the stores. And then all of the touch points around it to tell its story. So here's Criff.
To be frank, New York City was never dead. New York City has always been fast, steamy, sizzling, cheesy, saucy, sweet, soft, hard, fat, lean, salty, pickled, playful, all beef, iconic, wild, messy, generous, everything. It has always been, frankly, the best.
So even all the writing in that, you know, like the everything, because if you get an everything bagel, you get an everything hot dog, you get all the everything on the sizzle, the steam. So all the language of the film is the language of New York, but also kind of how you can get your hot dog prepped. So you can see how all of it just comes together. So really lucky to work on a project like that, but also lucky you make your own luck by the self-initiative as well. And it was one of our designers who did the illustration. We kind of used a former designer who wanted to then go into photography to take a lot of the pictures for us. Kind of begged, borrowed and stole a little bit to help get a film pulled together. And you know, we got our first pencil in the studio because of it. So believe in magic, be curious, measure twice, cut once. Maximum meaning, minimum means. Ironically, the longest sentence on there. Tell great stories and be brave. That's it. As Billy said, I'd love some questions.
I'd like you carry on. Any questions? Hands up.
Yes.
I'll go first if I can. I really like the story about the designer that cuts up the film or something else.
Yeah.
So it made me think, what's the best mistake?
What's the best mistake that I've made? Well, yeah, actually, I think one of the best mistakes I ever made was going to work for a design company in Singapore when I left the first company that I'd gone over there to work with, and I thought, you know, I worked with my ego. They flattered me. I thought, yeah, this would be great. I love it. And it just was not the right fit. It just wasn't right. From the minute I got there, I was like, oh, this isn't right. And you know, it didn't matter how hard I worked. I worked extremely hard there. I just didn't gel, and I kind of knew that when I had the interview. I knew it, and it was kind of the first. I'd worked in London. I'd gone over to Singapore. I'd been working for the same agency for a while, and I just think I was flattered by this rather than listening to my gut. But I happened to be out this night talking to my friend saying, oh, I've just made such a big mistake here. And they introduced me to somebody, and he went, hey, I'm creative director of the design department at Dent Studio in Rubicon. You should come and speak to me. I'm interested in what you do. So I ended up actually going and working for him and discovered the design department was him. But it was brilliant because I went into the world of advertising, and it's a game changer for me because there was people who got paid just to do the strategy. Get that in design agencies now, but you didn't so much back in the day. It was big. The clients that they worked on were big. It was just a completely different environment, and we were still just doing design, but because what we did was so different to what the art directors did. That they kind of wanted us to be involved in everything, and it was just fabulous. And we kind of the department grew, we were really successful. But yeah, if I'd best mistake, picking the wrong job that led to actually getting somewhere way better. Good question. If I had a bottle of bourbon, I'd give you a bottle of bourbon. Yeah.
What aspect of your work do you enjoy most now at this stage in your career?
Oh, the beginning, figuring it out, getting the brief from a client and kind of thinking, where are the opportunities? What is it that we want to do? You know, what do we need to do to get to solve this? You know, who are the people who are going to be good to work on it? Who needs an opportunity? That's kind of the bit that I really love. And then working with there's nothing more rewarding than knowing that you've contributed to somebody, and then they come and show you something and you're like, oh my god, that's brilliant, it's so good. Yeah, definitely. I've definitely gone back to being analog, especially because I've not been working for a few months. I can open my computer and I'm like, I can't even remember any shortcuts. I don't know how all this works. Anybody else? Yeah.
What's been your favourite project?
Oh, I love the Johnny Walker one because that was like a slow build over a few years and kind of gave us an opportunity, you know, for the working with the makery, with the paperwork, and then kind of, yeah, it was fabulous. But, you know, I have to say, you know, things like working on HTH, I just love how transformational it was and how the client was kind of so up for it to change it. That fruit juice one I showed you, Hogerstaker, that was, long name, Dutch company. That was also transformational because I think it was the time when the Amsterdam studio was still a bit smaller, and we got known for a few things, but then suddenly I had people from the London studio calling, going, "Oh, I love that you do," you know. So you kind of go, "Oh, it's like to make a mark." We're kind of getting our own identity, but sometimes you love the projects because the people that you've worked on it with, or the opportunities you've had to travel, and you know, and it's not always about the outcome at the end of it. It's also sometimes about because I've worked on chocolate projects that have been great, but actually in the end we just moved a few things around. But the journey of that, and the kind of working with the strategists and the design team, and the kind of, that's also, you learn stuff for the next time. It's really hard to see. Yeah.
Who would you like to work with that you haven't already?
Who would you like to work with?
Yeah, rebrand.
Rebrand. You know what? I think that we can just want to go after sexy brands. Oh, I love it because it already looks great. I think it's great to work on things that aren't sexy at all and really make a difference. And that needs the client to be prepared to make that, go on that journey as well. But it also takes kind of being respectful of what already exists and why it exists, and that sometimes it takes, that was 3 years of doing stuff for Johnny Walker to get to where we did there. But then also because it actually, there's a return on investment for the client, that the markets take it up and it's really successful, and it gives you more opportunity. So, I've loved it when I worked on charities. I loved it when you can kind of take what you've learned and kind of give back. And every studio I've ever worked with in some way, and kind of, even the work that, a speakeasy is not a charity, although it could be kind of considered very vital for some people. It was still, we were helping out his business. We had something to be able to give to them. So yeah, I think, does that answer the question? Don't go for the sexy things, go for the things that you can contribute to.
That's why you can't help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you were in our shoes now, as a third-year designer about to go to the real world as it is now, what would be your next step?
What would be my next step? Really look at the agencies out there and what's a fit for me. Not who's doing the best stuff, who's doing that. What are they actually like there? Can you get an internship there? Can you get quite a few little short internships? Can you speak to a senior designer who's already there? Don't reach out to the CD and go, "Hi, I've got my portfolio together, can you just have a look at it?" Because you're not necessarily going to get but there might be more junior creatives there who've been there for a while that you could speak to. But don't go for the thing that is kind of like, because there's amazing agencies around there. It's like the size of an agency, where it's located, the kind of work that they work on, is that the type of thing that you want to do? Where do you think that you're kind of going to grow the most? But also be prepared for hard graft as well. It's but it's the most fun starting out your career and being in the studio and just being inspired by other people and kind of working late and kind of getting dinner and then going back and doing. That's like you need to be doing it now while you've got bounce back ability, because there'll be a moment where it's harder to get out of bed the next day. But it's kind of, that's where you start to see who you are as a creative, no matter what discipline that you're in. So don't just go for the what looks sexy. Actually that might be the perfect fit for you, but really understand what their culture is like, how long people stay there, have they got a good track record of growing juniors up through the kind of. I was super proud that all my creative directors in New York had started with me as seniors and made their way through. What's the career path like? But then that's what you're asking of them. You then need to look at what you're going to ask of yourself and kind of go, it's hard work. What we do is still considered art and creative, so there's kind of almost like a given. You're just going to do it. You're going to put yourself into it. But put yourself into it and enjoy it, and know that you're learning stuff every day that you do that. And plus, you're probably living in a little tiny apartment that's no fun anyway, so you want to be in the studio and get a free dinner because you work late and then go out with your friends.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
What's your least favourite part of the design process, I guess?
Least favourite is, often it's just the tenacity to stick with it and see a project all the way through, because some can take a really long time. HTH took we'd done all the stuff, and then it's 2 years of legal kind of, you know, that have to then kind of go on. It just feels painful and stuff coming back, and you know, so even understanding where your strengths are, just not getting knocked by the feedback as well. Like, you can have really bad presentations with clients and be able to kind of come back and kind of go, right, why were they saying that? Well, you can't make it about us and them. You have to understand why they're in the position that they are, and kind of like they can't be brave because the product's kind of like it needs to stay a certain way, or they've only just started in their job, or so I think you have to kind of understand that, you know, even though you love it and everybody in the studio loves it, and you go there and present it to the client, if they don't get it, then you have to understand why they don't get it, and then also keep other people motivated around it. A big part of my job is often been around, that's okay, there's always another idea, let's kind of go back to the drawing board, and there always is another idea, always. That's the brilliant thing about all of your minds, you know, you can come up with something else. So, yeah.
Anybody else?
Can I just ask, what's your thoughts on, there's a bit of a thing at the moment about, or for a while now, producing sort of single concepts, whereas I'm old school,
Yeah.
I would tend to be more than
Yeah,
one
yeah.
concept. What's your feelings on, I know it depends on the client
It
or budget.
completely depends on all that. I think you need to give clients a choice. Sometimes they can be a bit cynical about it and kind of go, oh, you're going to show me the all right one first, and then the rubbish one next, and then the best one third, and then I'm going to, you know, and they're going to have that joke. Never show something that you don't believe in and you aren't prepared is going to happen. If you are absolutely convinced there's just one, and you have that relationship with, you know, then do it. But also, you know, it's good to have a discussion around putting things in front of somebody to go why this isn't right and why this is right, because then you learn more about it as well. So particularly, you know, now where you are all experimenting, doing things, you should be coming with 2 or 3 things, you know. You can, if you've only got one thing, then talk about why you're struggling and why you can't gonna get some other ideas, because even in that conversation around that, other stuff might come. And don't make everything so polished straight away either. If it's a great idea, you can express it quite simply. You know, so go and be able to talk about it in a simple and direct way. And likewise, don't come with a million things. Learning to self-edit as well. Kind of like, you all work really hard. Do not need to see a pile of stuff. Way better if you've got an hour with somebody to kind of go, I've done all of these things and I've got 3 things I'd like to talk to you about, and this is what I think is working and not, and I'd really like the input. You know, I can't stress enough that, you know, it was like one of my things always with work, whether you're a junior designer all the way through, when you're reviewing, take it seriously, really use it as an opportunity to practice presenting, because you need to do it. You need to get good at talking about your work and getting feedback as well. So don't waste those opportunities. Don't go in and go, oh, I've got some stuff. What do you think? Because you'll get richer responses. If you go in and are clear about the type of feedback that you need, you'll get better responses as well. You know, it also make the lecturers go, oh God, I've got to get my stuff together now. They're really on it. I haven't had any popcorn thrown at me, so that's good.
Anybody else for a question? I'm going to finish on the final one then.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the shortened version of how you met Paul Weller?
No, only over a bottle of bourbon. I was sat outside a pub in Amsterdam that was next door to my house, and I kept seeing this guy walking around, and I went, look, he cuts his hair like Paul Weller. Obviously thinks he looks a bit like Paul Weller. And then he came and sat down next to me, and I went, it is Paul Weller. And then lots of other things, and a recording studio and things, yeah, fun.
Okay, thank you, Claire.